when we started our passage in 2010. Along the way, we met families, and the numbers grew quickly. And we realized that a lot of other Pasifika families wanted the support. They wanted a place to meet, and that's how we started providing a space, which we're now meeting every once a term now. But when we first started, we met monthly. We had access to a community hall in Mount Wellington, and we were meeting monthly, and then every second month. Yeah, it's just a little bit. So I'll just give Rochelle an opportunity to share.
Yeah, whawhitai tele lava mo le awanoa, Moana Connect. So yeah, I was born in Soteokelani, grew up in the Bay of Islands, spent many years in Wellington and Porirua, and now I'm back home up north. So my husband and I have two children, and our oldest, now 13, but at the time 3.5, was diagnosed with autism and also global developmental delay. And we had never heard of these words, had no understanding of them. And so, as Betty says, it's a very quick turnaround to try and find out what is this and what does it mean for our family, and how can we still help our son to be the best that he can be. And so, me being somebody who's into research, I guess, or learning, tried to find out everything I could about this new thing. And so that led me to a conference where I found Passage and a whole table of Pacific mums with autistic children, and I was like, wow, we're not the only family. This is amazing. And so ever since then, we've been a part of Passage and seen it grow from strength to strength. And like Betty said, it was extremely challenging in the beginning, but it really is that community that helped us get through and gave us the information that we couldn't find from organisations and sometimes from the health system as well. So it's been an awesome journey, yeah.
So my son is now 19, and he's gone through mainstream. He's had OARS funding. For us, acceptance, what does it look like for him as an adult now? Is he accepted in society, in the community that he loves? He's got a lot of interests, especially around trains, anime, and some of those things are very kind of out of my depth, and it's not the same interest as myself. So for me, acceptance is, as a parent, I had to learn about his interests, and go alongside, go with him, ask him questions. And yeah, so acceptance for me was just to look at my son's own interests, because it has changed over the years, and not to treat him as a child or a baby. He's a young adult now, and giving him those opportunities to be able to express back to me what he wants to do. And I think for me, looking back, as a parent, when putting away, I had dreams, desires for my son, what I thought. And then when the diagnosis came, I was like, okay, so what does that mean? Does it mean he's got no future? No, it doesn't. It just means that his future would look different to what I first thought it would be, and that's okay. I've accepted it. So, and that's my journey for me, with acceptance.
Yeah. For me, this year it was so cool to see that the Autism Acceptance and Awareness campaign over the last few years more widely has led to where we are this year, where we're seeing Pacific events promoted for our families and our children to attend. That was not something that we saw a lot in the earlier years or at all, and so it's just so exciting that there is something for our families, and that they're so much more connected up now. Um, and yeah, so that's been really exciting. One thing I would say is that as we move forward, it's so important to make sure that we amplify those actually autistic adult voices as we move forward as well. As sometimes with the best intentions, we can go gung ho, but sometimes we just really need to bring the actually autistic voices along with us, particularly in the month of autism acceptance. And so things like using the puzzle piece, which a lot of us did when we were naive and didn't know, that's actually not the kind of widely accepted symbol of autism for the adult community, which would be a gold infinity symbol or a rainbow infinity symbol for neurodiversity. So yeah, it's just really important that as we go along and we're so excited and we want to raise awareness and acceptance, that we do that in a way that is respectful of those who it directly affects.
Actually, no, it's not. And what Passage has done is try to create some space for the older teenagers. Like, for example, last weekend we had a game jam, which was hosted by the Course Collective. They provided a space for our kids to go and do some gaming. It was in a safe place, and it ranged from the ages of 11 to 19 or 20. There was a 20-year-old there as well. So it's place finding things that our kids are interested, well, they're not kids, they're adults, a place for them to meet. There are some spaces out there, fab, but we haven't really gotten into or connected with those organizations. So again, it's for us, we have to go and find out what services they offer, and then ensure that it's something that our child, we don't want our to send them, but yet that's not what they're interested in, because everyone has their own interests. So for Roman, he loves like a place like Armageddon. So for us, that was a place that he will go. That's his, and the trains. He would like to, he likes watching videos or about trains and learning the histories of various trains around New Zealand. So so even it could be a trip that he will have to do. So we will take him for those kind of, but there's not really any, I guess, organization, because everyone's interest or passion is different. All the autistics will have their own interests. So I guess we're doing our own for our own child, but yeah, I think there's still a big gap out there, especially after they finish school. I mean, my son is supposed to be going to school up to 21, but I asked him, "Do you want to still be in school?" And he goes, "No." So he left. Last year was his last year. He just wasn't really interested. For him, school was a place to socialize, not really he wasn't looking at as education wise.
My research questions were based on our own experience and wanting to see if that matched other Pacific families out there, and also wanting to find those positive narratives about autism. And so I looked at the holistic experiences of parents raising autistic children in Aotearoa, their support needs, what they were accessing and what was not there that they wished could be there, and also how we maintain our language and culture, our traditional languages and culture, given that sometimes with autism there are some real challenges with communication, and that ranges from those who are non-speaking altogether all the way through to fully verbal and everything in between. And so how do we keep that language and culture alive given those kind of challenges? So it was amazing to be able to talanoa and have the privilege to research the subject, which, there was no Pacific autism research at all. So it was an absolute privilege to sit with families and just tell more about our experiences. And, we laughed, we cried, and in transcribing the data later, I laughed, I cried all over again, just at the stories. And, themes of navigation and journey came up a lot. And so I used that as a metaphor for the experience of parenting an autistic child. And so, just like our navigating ancestors who explored and settled all of Oceania, the journey of parenting a neurodiverse or autistic child is filled with unknowns, unexpected challenges. There's rough seas, there's forced change, but there are also blessings. You find purpose, you create a vision and amazing connections, and there are new understandings and ultimately new horizons, all within the journey. So it's a lot to try and summarize, but this is the first piece of research that then other Pacific communities can bounce off and also make it their own. But it was really that first chance at letting our families speak and talk about their experience.
Yes, so this has been a year-long project. So Pacifica families living with autism shared their lessons, I guess, and hopes and dreams of awareness and acceptance and what it looks like. The book is also an open invite to connect to Talanoa and to strengthen the VAR with those living with autism. And what was so awesome about the book was that it was written by, the people themselves, which were grandparents, parents, and autistics. And a young child, and Roman is also, he shared his journey as well in the book. So it's a book that's from a Samoan, Cook Island, Tongan, and Koilau perspectives. So it's really good to hear about their journeys and also to celebrate, how far um, the child has come or the young adult has gone. And also at the back of the book, there's also tips on resources on where families can go and get some support or what is autism. So the book is not just the stories, but there's a lot of resources in it as well.
I think the first thing I would like people to consider is that autism is just one type of neurodiversity.
Mm.
And that really means that God made people's brains different in the ways that they work and communicate. And if we think of different brain types, we might think of how people have differences in their attention, behavior, their movement, the way that we handle information coming through our senses, our learning styles, and the way that people read numbers and letters, our different talents. And while all of these brains are different, neurodiverse, all of these brains are normal. Also, I think all behavior is communication, and autistic children, particularly when they're young, use different behaviors and strategies to communicate because they're often still learning their language or perhaps they're non speaking. And so, if you see a family struggling with a child's behavior, perhaps the child can't communicate what's happening for them, or if the child might be clearly overwhelmed. Um, Consider that perhaps the child is neurodiverse and not being naughty.
Mm.
The kindness and understanding of others makes a huge difference, and most parents are genuinely trying the best with the tools that they have at the time. And I guess lastly, behavior that we might think looks like a tantrum or somebody being naughty in autistic children is often a sign that they are really overwhelmed or experiencing sensory overload. And it's nobody's fault, but basically that little child can't deal with what's going on for them in their little body, and they need adult help to get through it. So, growling or punishment at that time can be very confusing and terrifying for the child as they're already trying to deal with everything that's coming at them. what really helps, and what came through strongly in the research, is that it really takes a village, and just that kindness and understanding of others really helps families get through at those difficult times.
I think probably just to add, if you've got families that has a child with autism, please reach out, and they could even just need something like a break. What we find hard is we sometimes it's hard to go out to do your shopping, things that we take for granted. Even just a coffee for mum. They probably just need someone to come alongside them and maybe give that parent a break, and maybe so the parent can go out. And what you need to do is you need to, instead of judging first, maybe just understand what is the child's characteristics, what do they love, what makes them maybe trigger their sensory overload, and then just support by just even if it's an hour, just to give mum and dad a break or some time out. It'll be really, really good. And I think the best one is for, families. I mean, this is something we do, it comes naturally for us. We support each other, as families. We come over, just ask what is it they need. Even if they smile and say, "That's like I'm okay, I'm okay." Maybe just ask again, because to be honest, I'm quite guilty of it. I put on a smile on my face and I say I'm okay. And when you say okay, I'm okay for so many years, you actually, as a parent, you actually struggling inside yourself, and you really need the help. And I guess for us parents who are on this autism journey, please, it's okay to say, yes, I need help. So accept the help, and or just even just listening, just being there to listen to whatever the journey could be for that person, or the season could look like for that autistic and their family.
So I think one thing to remember is that children reflect what is going on in their immediate world or environment. And so if they sense that us as parents or wider family are worried or scared, then they will also show anxiety through their behavior and emotions. And that may be in different ways that we might not recognize as worry. But if we are able to be that calming influence, then they will more likely be curious rather than anything else. And so, for both us and our children, a couple of top tips when working around anxiety is it's physically impossible to be fully relaxed or having a really good belly laugh and anxious at the same time. So, these are a couple of great ways to banish that anxiety, at least in the short term. And I think another thing is talk with your children. Often we forget, and particularly when children have less language, we forget that they have thoughts and a story as well, and they'd like to share in the way that they can. And so keep them informed at a level that they can understand. And with children who crave routine and no surprises, when you need to create a new routine, say for lockdown, give them those transition warnings. They're really important and they make a massive difference. So, people who work with children who are autistic, or parents will be familiar with things like PECS cards, social stories, first then routines, and timetable or picture boards and reward charts. So these are all strategies that we use to help the child know that something is coming, and they can feel safe in that, and that they know a little bit about what's happening next. And then kind of like you just prepare for everything and then go with the flow and just be patient, because some children will find change really difficult and others will be okay with it. So Betty and I heard lots of different experiences. There were some kids that loved lockdown and they loved being around the family and at home, and there were others that found that change quite difficult. So every child's different. And I think also my learning that I took away was that the main priority sometimes can't be school or work or online learning when you're at home in that kind of situation, but it has to be the well-being of the family, and that's absolutely okay. And now that we have some idea of the things that could happen, we can practice for things like really bad weather or staying inside for lockdown. And you could have a code name for that that you only use for that and that no one would say, like in everyday language, something like super bad weather. And then you could create a routine like mum or dad will pick you up and bring you home so you can be safe. And then, yeah, that just helps them know that, okay, if it's super bad weather, mum or dad will pick me up, and that just helps them get rid of that anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us was a lot of talking, like breaking down our conversation into short, simple sentences, and just listening to if he understood what was happening. My son did not like the COVID lockdowns; he preferred to be at school, and he so unable to distract him, we had to constantly figure out something outside to do with him. And it even became like just like doing exercises outside with the gym equipment that actually helped him keep going. So, and also going for walks. He's independent where he's able just to walk around the block. But he did not enjoy lockdown. And the other thing, as a parent, I had to be a bit more proactive because no one was messaging him. He didn't know how to do the class Zoom. So I had to ask, and contact what's happening because my son doesn't. He's pretty much just sitting at board. But once he got online and you could see his classmate, he was really, really happy. So for him was learning how to use Zoom. That's a new skill for him, and he learned that because of lockdown.
I think families should know that a diagnosis is not to be feared. A diagnosis opens doors to get more support and more knowledge about how to understand your child and help them. Autism is not something that will improve on its own, and it's not going to go away. It's not something to be cured or fixed, though. You just need to adapt and change.
Mm.
And research shows that once parents have a diagnosis, the journey of acceptance and learning can start. And children who have a diagnosis and that support put in early, particularly before the age of 5, is really important, have much better outcomes than those who have no diagnosis and no support. For example, if a child is helped with their language and they gain just one word before the age of 5, they'll have much better chance of success and better outcomes. You can't figure this out on your own, and it's nobody's fault. It wasn't your parenting, and it wasn't anything that you didn't do or you did do. But once you get on that journey, it gets better and you won't stress out so much, and you can start to enjoy your relationship with your child again. So, diagnosis is available free through the New Zealand health system. So either through your child's school or early learning centre or your GP, and you can go private as well, but there is a cost for that. But do it; it helps.
Beautiful. That's very uplifting and encouraging. Betty, did you want to add as well?
No, I just want to really second that. I work as an ECE teacher, and I've been in there for probably 2 years, and I've seen firsthand of parents who, um, not sure what to do, but what the EC centre should provide the parent is their observation on the child, and they'll be able to say, well, this is the milestone of these. This is where your child's learning should be at, and that's why we're wanting to refer so we can get support. Like Michelle has said, we want to get support, whether it be a speech therapist, Ministry of Education support, but you can't do that unless the child's diagnosed. And the other issue is, yes, there is a long waiting period before you see a pediatrician, but that's why it's really important that you should get it done before the age of 5. Because one good thing, when you're in the ECE, the ratio or the classroom size is way smaller than a primary school class size. So that's why it's good to put the support in place as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Parents who may be feeling more stressed or worried than usual about their child's well-being, what are some tips or advice you have for their own self-care?
So I think that's what I was saying before about don't be afraid to look after yourself first and use those networks that you have. Tap into your village. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely ask for help. You know, I've had parents just message passage saying, what should I do? And we'll be able to maybe give them directions. If we can't actually help, we maybe can refer, not refer, but just tell them maybe try this, support. Parents, it's okay to get counseling. Sometimes parents need counseling on how they need the, you know, maybe their own anxiety or trying to manage the household. And it's also important as well, if you're married, it's important that husband and wife work together as a team, because it actually puts more strain when one goes left and the other one goes right. So that's some of the tips, I guess, that's helped our family.
Parenting a neurodiverse child is a lifelong commitment and it requires extra support for our parents and families. But in order to have adequate levels of support for our Pacific families, government and agencies need to have numbers of how many exactly of us are there so that they can allocate those resources. So we need to have quality epidemiological studies to count us, literally. So there are some stats that are out there, but what we know from the research is that these are likely to be underestimated and an underrepresentation of those who are actually in the community. And also some of our families don't access diagnosis. So from the research also, the three main external supports that families were really hoping for that would be life-changing for them were access to trusted carers for our children, the ability to pay family who were already providing a lot of care and help, and flexible support funding for the child. And these are actually available to some people, but not for all cases. And it could just be opened up a little bit more. So, for example, those who have older children living at the address with the autistic child are not able to be paid. However, extended family members who come into the home are able to be paid, but yet it's often our aunties, uncles, older children, nieces, nephews who provide significant caregiving for our children, and they're putting their own work on hold at those times. So also the number of Pacific families taking up the supports that are there is extremely low, 6%. And we know there are a massive amount of Pacific families who are eligible for this support, but they don't know about it, they don't know how to apply for it. And so it's really up to those organisations, healthcare professionals, to make families aware of what's out there and help them to get on that journey. And that's where Passage has been so helpful for so many families, because we just get together and we talk and we find out about what's out there. And then it's like, oh, how did you do that? Okay, yeah, how can we do that? So that's what I love those groups to know.
I think I just want to add, like we mentioned earlier, there's online support or groups that you can join. And one group that's been really helpful for me is the VIP or VIPS Equity in New Zealand Education, or Equity in Education New Zealand. And this is where, you know, when we have questions about our education or about the OARS application, which is ongoing resources, and not everyone gets can access that support. So you know, it's, if, how would you say it? So you can ask questions on what you could do, even be involved in your child's school, get in, you know, within the board, sit on the the board of trustees, so you can be part of those decision making. It's really important that us Pasifika are up there being part of these decision making for the education sector. And I think for myself, like at the moment, I'm on the Te Potahu Disability Voices group, which is part of the New Zealand curriculum, and I'm part of the Disability Voices group where we're able to, give our views. We're speaking on behalf of our kids, but on that group, there are actually those with disability on that group. And there's only two of us Pasifika. And so I'm just trying to probably encourage, get on those groups, try and get your voices heard, especially in the education sector or the Ministry of Health. Yeah, that's what we can do to help make policies or make an impact on policies to change to support our autistics and families. Yeah, there is one that just started this year, and it's actually by one of the dads from our Passage group. And yeah, if you can give me your contact details, and maybe I can pass it on to Peter, and so he can contact. But if you're in Auckland, fingers crossed you're in Auckland, but there is one up here in Auckland. So I also need to mention that there's a Passage group in Wellington as well, and that's led by Daniel and Anna Filimoni, and they're doing a really, really great job down there as well.
So in the research, a lot of the families talked about how Passage was really helpful for the dads as well, because often there isn't a place where dads can go and feel, able to open up and share their experiences with others. And often they experience denial for longer than mothers do, and it's harder for them to adjust to a diagnosis. So we really need to look after our dads. Autism Parents and Carers Facebook is a great resource, and that the dad's Facebook that Betty was talking about is posted on there as well. But just talking to other dads is really the way to kind of spark it up and have those conversations so that you can support each other and know that you're not doing it alone. Probably just say places to go for more information for parents out there. There are websites, Altogether Autism and Autism New Zealand, which are really good sources of information. Pacific Autism Aotearoa on Instagram, the Pasifika Autism Support Group website and Facebook. And we're also rolling out Talanoa for Pacific families in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch over the next couple of months, where families can hear much more about the research from the Pacific Autism Study, and health professionals can also learn about the Pacific experience and what they can do to help families before and after diagnosis. But I guess the best way to change the world for autistic and other neurodiverse people is to be kind and to teach your children to be kind and accepting of difference. And neurodiversity is normal.
Definitely agree on Michelle. I just want to add, our autistics, they are so beautiful. They have such a great future for them. So watch the space.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. On behalf of our team and Moana Connect, I would like to extend a heartfelt gratitude and huge whakataitele, whakawelahi, malo aupito for your time to share your experience about autism.